Welcome to She's on Board, the podcast that celebrates the journeys of successful women in leadership and board roles, both public and private. I'm your host, Marie, and today I'm so thrilled to have Karla Martin with us. Karla is an accomplished board member, operational executive, and strategic advisor with deep expertise in retail, consumer technology, AI, and innovation. With leadership experience spanning large corporations, entrepreneurial ventures, and venture capital, she has played pivotal role in driving business transformation, omni-channel growth, and operational excellence. Currently, Karla is serving on boards of Savage X Fenty, Ramy Brook, and Raspberry AI. Karla is known for her strategic acumen and ability to navigate organizations through various stages of growth. She was previously the managing director at Deloitte, where she led global retail, luxury, fashion, and apparel strategy and held leadership roles at Google, Bose Allen, and Sherman and Sterling. A recognized thought leader and main stage speaker on luxury, retail innovation, digital transformation, and leadership effectiveness, Karla is also a passionate advocate for increasing diversity in C suite and boardrooms. She has been honored by board prospects as one of 100 Black board members making a difference, a recognition she attributes to the mentorship and sponsorship of industry leaders who have supported her board journey. Also, a graduate of both Harvard College and Harvard Law School, Karla brings a unique blend of legal, strategic, and operational expertise to every leadership role she takes on. Karla, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I don't know if I learned a lot. So thank you for a lovely, lovely intro.
Thank you. We're so honored to have you here. Just taking the audience and would love to hear about your journey. If you can talk to us the beginning of your board journey, we'd love to hear how you landed your first board role, whether it was advisory, private, and what was that experience like for you?
Everybody's board journey is different depending on where they are. I had started most of my career in the services industry. I was a banker, I was a lawyer, and I was a management consultant. Usually that's a non-traditional path to board service. And I knew I wanted to do something large and global. I had been on non-for-profit boards. I was on the board of the San Francisco Ballet for a bit and wanted to do something more connected with my passion, but still I was working in consultant. So I joined the board of the Center for Reproductive Rights. It's an organization whose work is near and dear to my heart. If you think of Planned Parenthood as the people who give you treatment, the Center for Reproductive Rights is the legal organization that keeps all those reproductive health and autonomy issues in the courts and in front of the judges. It's global, so we're doing work in the global south, we're doing work in Africa and Asia. And so I really love that. And it runs like a big, large global board, right? It has fundraising, obviously, because it's non for profit, but it has audit committees, non gov, right? So the governance structure of that board was really important in the way we operated because we were globally aligned and we had multiple partners allowed us to be a real board. And that was great board training along the way because I love women entrepreneurs. I love people who are trying to disrupt things in retail and tech. I did a lot of advisory work for small startups that were attacking issues that I thought were important for retail, digitizing your fabric library, or with Raspberry AI, companies that are doing the next gen of what design and merchandising can look like with AI side by side. So that was my board sort of journey. Was lucky enough to have in Barry Lawson Williams and Robin Washington just great mentors. They broke down a ton of barriers in Silicon Valley around board leadership. I know you just saw Robin joined Salesforce as the first ever chief financial and COO officer. And so I got to literally sit at the feet of giants while I watched them create things like Black Women on Boards, which I was one of the founding members of, and just be around these amazing women who were nothing but supportive of my journey. I decided that what I really wanted to do was something private, just because I like the growth stage of a company. I think the problems are interesting. The board members get to lean in a little more on expertise. And so when I left Deloitte to join the Savage X Fenty board, that was a huge part of it for me. It also spoke to things that I was really passionate about. I think Rihanna, as the face of that brand, means so much to so many women just about how she
Absolutely.
expresses herself, how she lives in her body, how she talks about motherhood. I think it's important, probably now more than ever, that we see faces like that in that industry. And so the ability to do that, work with some amazing people in PE and venture capital, and just be part of an amazing brand, it was a no-brainer. And
Yeah.
then from there, in this Ramy Brook I met through friends and just love her, always repping the brand. If you see me in a picture, I'm almost always going to have Ramy on. So
That's amazing. I love her. That's awesome. Truly inspiring. And it's just like what you said. You have a unique, non traditional background coming from legal and starting within what you were passionate in. So that's just amazing to see that. You've served in several boards across industries. What would you say are some of the biggest shifts you've seen in board dynamics over the years, especially when it comes to leaderships and decision making?
So I would say I have a unique perspective in the sense that as you become more senior in consulting, a lot of your work is for boards. Up to even like 15 years ago, boards would be generally made up of other people in the same industry, but maybe at different scale, right? So not direct competitors, but smaller
Right.
companies or manufacturers. And I think as we start to see digital transformation taking root about 15, 12 years ago, people were saying like, we need some Google people on the board. We need some engineers from Apple. We need younger people on the board, right?
Mm,
For the first time, people wanted people with digital marketing experience on board, whereas before those were considered functional areas and all to former C-suite executives.
yeah.
And I think now we're seeing the aperture open up because they're realizing that different points of view from outside of the industry make a difference in how you think about attacking issues in your industry.
I love that. I'm seeing that as well. There's that new appetite because a lot of my clients' key criteria for board roles used to focus mostly on financial reporting, compliance, and risk management. But things have, like you said, definitely shifted. And I love to hear those functional areas. So there's a much, much bigger emphasis on the long term vision, innovation, and sustainability.
Yeah.
So it's no longer just about hitting quarterly targets. You put it perfectly. Boards today are expected to not just be thought partners, but be aware of new things, emerging markets, challenges, and instead of just reacting to what we have done in the past.
Is a new 5 years ago, very few people were thinking about having a cyber expert on a board. Now, very few people don't have one because it's a big deal. Right now, I come from fashion world, right? And every day is a new day around tariffs and moving goods, et cetera. And so
Right.
people are saying like, oh, we really need somebody with government expertise or somebody who really makes the ins and outs of how to move between countries and tariffs work. And you're seeing some people put economists on their board, right? So I think it is gone from being like straight operator in the same industry or adjacent industry, which frankly led to, I would say, an old boys club to being more diverse across the board, more women's voices, more non-traditional voices, even people who have been chief legal counsel are now on boards because the entire role of the general counsel has changed.
Yeah. And you brought that the culture, right? So my next question is culture fit versus culture ad. We hear about the importance of culture fit in boards, but really some argue that culture ad is even more critical. How do you see the balance between maintaining a strong board culture and bringing diverse perspective that challenges the status quo?
Culture add is to say, to bring an experience outside and say, the way I've seen this work in other industries is XYZ, right? Have we tried that perspective? And I think the reason that works now more than ever is there's just more, and part of it is we live in California, right? So you're right in Silicon Valley where everybody intertwines with everyone else. Like pharmaceutical companies want to be more like tech companies, who want to be like retail companies, who want to be like healthcare companies. And so I think having that perspective of how things work when your industry is changing. One of the things I would say is a project I worked on that you would not think when Obamacare was rolled out, we at Booz did a large project for Kaiser Permanente around what does it look like? This is a retail problem. What does it look like to suddenly sell something direct to consumers that you've used to sell through an agent? And it's a complex product to sell, right? More of that DNA coming in and out of other industries is why we continue to see innovation. So I think culture add and culture fit go hand in hand.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's a relationship with a group of people. And you don't always have to like each other, but you do have to respect each other. You have to get along and you have to be able to communicate because you're not there for each other. You're there to create shareholder value and grow the company. And so I think that is where all the culture stuff comes in.
Yeah. You put it, as you put it, culture fit is really about aligning with the board values and working style, while culture add is about bringing those fresh perspective that challenge outdated thinking and driving innovation. Boards today really need both leaders who respect the existing culture, but also bringing in the new insights that push organizational forwards. I would say the best board members I've placed are the ones who can ask those tough questions, speak meaningful discussions, and really offer unique expertise while working well with each other.
Yeah.
So, for those next gen board members, really think about what sets you apart and how you can add those value, whether it's industry expertise, digital transformation, ESG, just a fresh leadership approach and perspectives.
Do all your homework, right? That is the number one thing. Do the reading, go for the A. It's not pass fail. So, the A. But I'd also say, I'm in the middle of my son is a senior. So the last child who's applying for colleges. And I think boards are the same thing. It's not good enough to just say, I want to be on a board because
Right.
one of the best pieces of advice I got was you need to have a story around why is this board good for me and why am I good for this board in terms of what I bring that's different, what I can add to this conversation, what committee I can fill, how I can use my time and treasure and influence to help this board and this company, then it maybe not be a good fit. Sometimes you're way ahead, right? So when it came to AI, I was fascinated with it. I'd done some work in it. I'd spent a lot of time in China and the Middle East studying it. And I was like, the best way to do this is to be hand in hand with some amazing founders and just see what's going on, what they're doing. And so I leaned into AI really heavily, both to educate myself, but starting in an industry I know, so then I could spread out to more agentic AI and things that AI are doing in other parts of industry.
That's amazing. I know you talked about global. I saw you posted you'll be at Web Summit in Qatar.
Leaving tomorrow.
I love that. That's going to be exciting and fun. I can't wait to hear how it goes. I'm sure you'll be posting some exciting things about the event.
There's founders there doing amazing things. They're doing amazing things in the future of fabric production, the future of mushroom leathers, like things that the fashion person I really love, the future of sustainable agriculture. I mean, it really is companies at the forefront.
That's amazing. I can't wait to hear about it.
Yeah.
You've obviously been an advocate for diversity in the C-suite and boardrooms. While progress is being made, what do you see as the biggest roadblocks preventing boards from becoming more inclusive, and how do we overcome them?
That's a loaded question in these times, but I would say
it's a couple of questions in one.
probably, I don't know if it's a roadblock too much as it was historically. There are some firms that place board members, but a lot of it was word of mouth. A lot of it is, I know this person, they would be good and they're board ready. Think about the way people live their lives. You know people like yourselves, right?
Right.
More likely that people of color know more non-people of color, just because of the way we have our lived existence in the country. And so sometimes it wasn't that you weren't qualified or you weren't ready. It's just that there was no pipeline to get you in the conversation. And if I think of things I've been involved with, which is with Robin and Merlene Santil on Black Women on Boards and the Santa Clara Black Corporate Board Readiness Program, I think both were founded on the thesis that there are so many diverse voices that are more than board ready. We'll do some programming. And the most important thing is we will use our networks to reach back and be sure other folks get on a board, right? And so if you've ever met Shannon Nash, she came up through the Black Women on Board program. She did BCBR. She's a dynamo and she's on amazing boards, but also she spends a ton of time reaching back and making sure that the next generation of board leaders are in the conversation. And I think the biggest obstacle has just been there was this invisible pipeline, right? And if you don't know how to get an invisible pipeline, then it doesn't feel like you're making it. And the other thing is having amazing sponsors. Like I've had amazing, mostly male sponsors who said, you should just do this. You should be on this board. And they were supportive of me. They got me in the conversation. They were huge boosters. There are rooms where it happens and they brought up my name. So it's a combination of both. I think one of the best stories I ever heard was from Stacey Brown Philpott, who just when she was ready, she said, I told everybody. She said, if you met me at a cocktail party at my kid's school, I would say, I'm doing this, but I really think my next phase of life is blah, blah, blah. And so sometimes you just have to put it out in the world and manifest it, right? Have your elevator pitch ready and say, this is what I would like to do next. If you hear of anything, let me know.
Yeah. I think the next gen board members know there is that invisible pipeline, especially now with the executive orders rolling back DEI initiatives. It's so discouraging, no doubt. But like you said, we need to continue to push through these barriers, advocate for yourself, build your personal brands, and network with purpose, and establish yourself really as a thought leaders in areas like I've mentioned before, digital transformation, ESG, or governance. So inclusion isn't just about checking a box, it's about real impact. So board leaders who bring fresh insights can work collaboratively to really drive these meaningful changes.
And I would say, even when I've worked with boards and the boards I've been on, I'm firmly a Black woman. It's how I identify. That's my community. I live and die for my culture. I've always been a board member who happened to be a Black woman. When California passed the law, I wasn't even on a California board. I was on an international board based in Sweden. It was a small gaming company. I think it's your technical expertise and your ability to do the work and put in the commitment, and that you bring other perspectives helps. And in my industry, the good thing about being in retail and being things adjacent is you want to sell things to people. But guess what? Guess where a lot of people with a lot of money are? Some of them are in India and Asia and Africa, right? You have that perspective in the room because you'll just jump over dollars to chase dollars. You'll miss huge markets if you don't have voices in the room that say, hey, I think we can get a bigger piece of market share if we started looking at things this other way. And I've never been in a board where someone said, I would like to shut that down. We don't want to make any more money. Thank you very much.
No, we don't hear that. Never. From a woman's perspective, I'm sure you've been in the hot seat and faced some uncomfortable decisions in your board roles. Walk us through how you navigate conflict resolution and making sure tough decisions are handled effectively while keeping the board aligned.
Yeah, so this one gets hard because boards have conflicts. I always go back to something my grandmother used to say about when you're in conflict, which was raise your words, not your voice. And so
Love that.
the more things are in conflict, the more I try to, these are the facts you need to do. Sometimes you just need to take a break, right? Sometimes people are taking it personally. Sometimes it feels personal. Usually it's just people who have different ideas of what is the best thing for the business. And so if you give them the grace to think that we're both here trying to do the right thing, we want this business to be successful. I just differ in how I think we're going to get there than you do. It's a relationship, right? If you find yourself screaming at each other across the table, probably not a great relationship, right? There's something else going on about it. And so you have to get to the root of it, or just take a break and say, we're not solving the problem. Like yelling at each other isn't going to solve the problem. We really need to figure out how we're going to get after this problem. And being a mom, it's sometimes it's just like how you manage teenagers. Snack and let's give it that.
Yeah, I love that. I'm going to take your grandma's advice because you need to have that on and off switch. And especially being a woman in the boardroom, like you said, can come with the added pressure, especially when tough decisions spark different opinions. But the best board leaders, no matter your gender, you should know how to embrace healthy debate, focus on facts over emotions, and create a culture of respect and collaboration.
Yeah. And every now and then it gets heated. I'm just not a yeller. And also, I think for women in particular, you want to be careful that passion doesn't get masked as like hysterical or any of those things. And being trained as a lawyer, the best arguments are made slowly, calmly, factually, and just repeated over and over again. Sometimes you lose the dynamic, and sometimes you go, this is not going to work.
Yeah.
Right? record my vote as saying I think we should do another thing. But if the room is against you, you only have two choices. You can resign or you can say, let's try it this way.
Is this something that can be learned and practiced? You have a strong diplomatic communication style, being that you come from legal and your background expertise. But is this something that can be learned through experience or?
We all live with other people, right? So you all have some form of conflict resolution that you do every year,
Right.
with your parents, with your friends, right? And most people who are on a board come from corporate setting. And there's achieved some level of seniority. You really get that if your reputation is you throw staplers at people and you raise your voice and you scream. And I think just generationally coming up as I have as a woman in consulting, you have to learn to lead a room, right? You get a bunch of leaders to agree to a
Right.
strategy that you've come up with or that your team
Mhm.
with. And so you get more comfortable with that. As long as you have enough ego to believe I belong in this room and what I have to say is valuable, but not so much ego that says I am right to do it my way or the highway. It's that balance. You can get through almost any conversation. As I always tell people when we're looking at slides, these aren't baby pictures of my children. I'm not going to be hurt if you say I like slide A over slide B. Really trying to turn the temperature down. The more heated it gets, the less people are likely to be listening as opposed to formulating their next argument. And what you really want is to say, well, how can we listen to each other better? And sometimes it's not resolvable. Tension stays for a while because you can't get to agreement, but the business keeps moving forward and then you have more facts and you revisit the issue.
You hit it right on again, navigating different viewpoints with confidence and composure and active listening and guiding discussions to a more productive outcome. I think that will really set you apart and make you an effective board member.
And you have the facts in front of you, right? You've got some pre-reading. You're usually not arguing about what you feel. You're on the same set of facts, right? Different people can look at the same set of facts and numbers and come to different conclusions. Easy ones are, we're running out of money. What do we do? You might have to,
Exactly.
but you can see the cliff, right? And you know when that's coming.
Yeah.
Harder ones are, should we pivot into something completely different? Start a new line of business that we haven't done before. And those are more nuanced, right? Because they could go either way. They could be successful. And then you have to draw on your experience, your relationship with the leadership team, right? Because at the end of the day, the management runs the company. The board's job is to hire, fire, and support the CEO. And so the key is, do we think the CEO is a good strategy? How do we support it? And how do we know that we've got a good enough relationship with management, but we're not stepping over the line between governance and management, right? The management team has to own kind of running the company at the end of the day. And the board's role is to have great governance and support that management team and not just trying to lean in and run the company. Even if it's a company that you know the industry very well, it's not your job as a board member.
Exactly. Yeah. Your boundaries. Don't
Yeah.
overstep it. Yeah. I love that. So, my next question is going into the future of retail and consumer innovation. I work with a lot of SVP and C suite leaders, especially right now, CMOs in retail and CPG, who would really love to tap into your expertise in this space. With your experience, how do you see board level decision shaping the future of AI, digital transportation, and omni-channel strategies? What are the top priorities companies are focusing on right now to stay ahead? And where do you see the biggest opportunities for innovation within this space?
So I'm going to take AI to the side because it's relatively new. But when you talk about digital transformation, I think the board's role is to say it's always build, buy, acquire, right? Have we gotten so far behind that we need to leapfrog and buy a company that can do this or it in-house? Looking at in-house, you're like, okay, are we a clothing company that needs some technology or a tech company that happens to make clothing at that balance? I think with AI, what you're seeing boards grapple with is, and you see this a lot when you're in big inflection points, consumer technology usually outpaces what is enterprise grade. And so people will come to marketers all the time and say, on my phone, I can do blah, 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 blah. Now, on your phone is the least secure place you could do business. So I think the board's role is to say, here is where some of the technology is. Here is where we think it could help the business. And how do we be thoughtful about rolling it out? And I think you're saying boards that used to think 5-year plans and they saw 5-year plans. What I learned from my time at Google is 2 years is like the event horizon. It was like after 2 years, we have no idea what the world will look like. And so when you think about strategic plans in 18 to 24 months, your ability to think about rapidly changing and how new ideas are going to come up, and you leave some mind share open to things you didn't think would happen. I knew about DeepSeek because I had been in Shanghai and China a lot in the last couple of years. It would make its way around as quickly as it did. There's always something like it. There's always a shift, right? There is nobody planned for COVID, right? There's always something you didn't see coming. And I think good boards, whether it's innovation or risk or whatever it is, spend at least a quarter time trying to look around corners and say, what is coming next? What do we think we're not seeing? It goes back to your thing about diverse voices. The different experiences you have in the room, even if it's more international, it lets you see around corners and say, oh, I don't think we're seeing how important this is going to be, right? Because innovation starts small, usually starts small in a tech or Silicon Valley area, and it takes a while to get it to scale.
Right.
And the company's first thing is, let's do it all right now. And the thing is, that's a big change management. It could be expensive. What is the risk to the business? Do we think the innovation is ready for a business of our scale?
Right.
I think it's taking that balance and not going so slow that you wait till everybody else has done it and you do a fast follow. I think that those days are over. But it's saying, are there parts of the business where there's probably little risk where we can add AI now? So can we add it to supply chain? Can we add it to the LMD learning so that like we're not, you need as many people or to do training in different languages, right? And then you get closer and closer. Can it design clothes and shoes and internet?
Yeah, it's like, when is that possible now?
But you don't want to, usually don't want to start at the core of the business because it's risky, right? But you inject AI and then you learn from it and you have more confidence that your CIO and their team can do it, that you controls in place to make sure you're responsible using whatever the new technology is.
Right.
And then you move out to the core of the business and digital marketing transformation. And it's going to do the same for design, drug discovery, all the places where we're seeing AI happen right now. And I like to say, and I'm stealing this from another great woman I heard at a conference once, it's like an intern, right? An intern, you give them responsibility, you don't let them go run the company, right? If you think about it as an intern, you're like, what can I offload onto the intern until I can do the best at my job, designing clothes or better drug, et cetera. AI works besides you. And I think when you think about it like that, it's less scary to the people who are going to have to use it within the company. And you think about it differently because you're really thinking about how are we going to translate or how we work and ways of working using tools the same way we would going from paper and pencil to tablets and computers.
Yeah. These are challenges a few of my CEOs are facing right now. And that's a great consult. I'm happy to share that with them because it's a question of bringing it in-house or continue with consulting. So that's always a challenge. And I've heard that from multiple clients just within the past several months that I'm currently retained with. I appreciate that great insight. This is a hot industry and a hot market right now. There's a lot of needs at the C-suite and even board level. So really appreciate the additional information.
Yeah. And I think it's going to be like, I guarantee you somewhere right now, there's a small company who are bootstrapping themselves, doing something that's going to be radically different. And we'll talk about it in a year from now. I think the pace of change in the last 20 years has gotten so fast. I think boards are now much more nimble and not less wed in, we have to do this. I think when you're big, it is hard to turn. It's like hard to turn the Queen Mary around in the middle of the ocean in a small kayak, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to be more thoughtful on a large board or when you're helping a large board because it's a bigger enterprise, right? And so if you pull something somewhere, you're like, what are the ripple effects? I mean, part of the board's job is sometimes to say, it would be great if we had a completely digital marketing, but at some point, is this technology going to be ahead of where the rest of the business is? And if that's the case, how do we bring the entire business more digitally native so that we don't have marketing that our supply chain can't handle, or that
Mhm.
can't do inventory management because we've sold things we don't have an inventory. Sometimes corporations can work in silos, boards absolutely can't. And that's, I think, the secret sauce is the board's job is to look at 10,000 feet across the entire organization and say, if you put this here, what's going to happen there? We don't have to answer those questions, but we give them the management to make sure they're making informed decisions as opposed to it's a happening thing and we need to have a piece of it.
Oh, couldn't agree more. That's definitely a hot topic and a lot to unpack there, but I'm sure I will be sharing that with my CEOs that I'm currently engaged with. Going back now, Karla, into your mentors, you've been very fortunate to have incredible mentors throughout your career. What's one lesson from a mentor that has really shaped your approach to board leadership? And how do you pay that forward? We talked about that to the next generation of leaders.
So I think the best lesson I ever got probably was one of my first jobs out of college. And I just spoke to this person the other day, and he's still a great mentor.
Oh,
And he was like, the difference between mentors and sponsors. While your mentor is a job, it is also your responsibility to be a good mentee, right? And so there are some folks at a company that I just may come to your office and say, Maria, I just need to vent, right? Those are probably more like your work buddies and sometimes your mentors. A really good mentor mentee relationship is here's what I've been doing, here's what I'd like to do. Any thoughts on how you can do this? How does this work here at this company?
yeah.
What would my next assignment be if I want to be at XYZ? In the industries I've been in, it's always been path to partner, right? So should I keep doing this or should I do this other thing? Or if I'm going to take a year off, should I take an internal role or leave because I'm having children, right? Real life questions that come up.
Right.
The way I pay it backwards is a reward initiative. Like I probably have too many mentees, but if a woman, people of color approaches me and they are really buttoned up around this is what I'm doing, 10 minutes of your time. I just wanted to ask a couple of questions. Because then I always have time for that, right? It's harder when someone wants to say, like, how did you do XYZ? Is that
Right.
somewhat applicable? But that's my journey, right? And here is where you are on your journey and what are your thoughts? And then I'm almost always willing to help, right? If it's not me, somebody to talk to is Maria. Or, and you say, I'm not the right person, but there's this other person. And I think that's how you pay it forward, right? I have daughters in college that will someday need mentors. So I'm hoping my generation of I'd help make partner or associates I'd help get other jobs if they were leaving. One day they might interview my daughter and say, oh, she's really awesome. We should give her a chance.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm sure that will happen.
And
You are a perfect example of someone who not only takes a seat at the table, but also makes space for others. You've shown that it's not just about climbing the ladder, but also bringing others along, fostering that diverse perspective and shaping future leadership. I love the way you said mentors can be your bouncing board, but at the same time, they can help you strategically with some of those questions, whether professional or personal questions. So I think everybody should have those personal board of directors, professional, personal, in every aspects of their life.
And at some point in your career, when you get senior enough, you're going to need mentors and sponsors.
Right.
And usually, when I'm talking to women who are just about to become partners or in that phase of their career at a service firm, I say that sometimes women are overly mentored and unsponsored. Right? So a lot of what you should be doing or list as opposed to people who are in a room of power. So Maria needs to be in this position
Right.
and keeps your name in circulation. And that's the difference between a mentor and a sponsor. They can be the same person. You will not be successful anywhere if you don't have sponsors, right? Because those are your eyes and ears in rooms that you're not in yet. And those are your tickets into those rooms. And and sometimes what you have to do is just ask somebody, right? I found that men sometimes are much more comfortable just asking.
Right.
The worst thing someone can say is, I just don't have capacity right now. And somebody will say flat out, no, go ahead. It's
Right.
usually, I don't have capacity to take any more mentees, but this person would be great. And let's check in with the quarter to make sure it's working for you.
Right.
And then the onus is on me to make sure our check-ins are efficient and I'm using their time wisely because it's usually somebody in a C-suite. And then think about mentoring outside of your, some of my best mentors have been clients, right? Or people I've met at conferences, right? They don't all have to be at your company because sometimes you need to talk to somebody who is 20 years older than you and 2 levels above where you are. And sometimes they're your client, right? And you just, at the end of the day, we're human people. We're social animals by our nature. And I think people want to help. You'd be amazed at how sometimes people say, no one's ever asked me this before. They're very imposing. They are very busy, but I find that it doesn't ever hurt to ask.
It doesn't hurt at all. Please ask. Yes, that is the key. You will never know. I feel like if you don't ask, you're failing by default. Ask. I love that.
Again, the worst thing that can happen is the person says no, but it's never usually a hard no. It's usually based on their capacity and what they can do right now in terms of their time. And ask again, right? You just need one yes, but just keep asking until you get somebody, who is invested in you.
I
And
love
then go back to my grandmother who had all the best sayings. If you want a seat at the table, bring food. Make sure that you know what you know and that you're really good at articulating what you know. And
that. I
so
love that.
you can't just show up and go, I'm on the board. You have to show up and say, I'm an expert in these things. What I'd like to learn from you other board members are these other things. And I think if you're a lifelong learner, you'll know that everybody is there for a reason and they all bring expertise that you don't have. And it's the board works as a group better than it works as a series of individuals, right? And so
Absolutely.
because it's a hive mind, it actually allows you to start thinking differently.
I just love advice from grandma. It's just so humbling, right?
Pleasant, and some of it is just my grandmother was from the South, so the people from the South have a lot of good sayings, but
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
was her favorite one?
It's so humbling. I love to hear that. It's the same with myself. It's very humbling. All the advice I take are mostly from my grandmother. So it's awesome to hear that. So, Carla, my last question is for audiences preparing for board roles, advice for aspiring board members, for women, underrepresented who aspire to serve on boards. What are the key steps they should take to position themselves for board opportunities?
So I am going to shout out to Santa Clara Black Corporate Board Readiness. So find a program that is very focused on getting women on board, Black women on boards, the Santa Clara program, because they will teach you the things that are different between a resume and a board bio. Very different documents,
that.
right? And I'm sure you see it all the time when
Yeah.
you're doing a search and you're like, this is a great CV, a board bio, which is a different thing, vice versa. Again, doing your homework and understanding that it's a long process and you want to start it 5 to 10 years before it may happen. And you want to be very planful, right? Sometimes you'll get calls and you get, oh, this sounds great. And you're like, so making sure that your first one matters and then the other ones will come from that. But the first one you pick is where you want to spend your time, people you want to spend your time with. And they've got good board mentoring so that someone is taking you through, you're my board buddy. We did this at Center for Reproductive Rights. This is what the meetings look like. Or you need to read the board book in advance because we don't go through committee notes note by note. We take questions. Like just somebody to show you the rope until
Yeah.
a settled in board member. And then you're doing that for someone else.
I love the board buddy because the path to board isn't always straightforward. So that's a great, I've never heard of board buddy. So I love that.
And then I would also say open the aperture. One of the greatest things that I think I've learned through working with large and small companies is when you think of boards, you always think of the Fortune 50 or the Fortune 100. Thousands of companies, publicly traded companies that have boards. And there is a place for somebody on all of those boards. And so if you open your aperture and say, what is really speaks to me, public boards are of interest as well. People sometimes think if it's not the board of Google, what does it matter? There's so many other boards to be on, and you can have a greater impact sometimes on some of those smaller boards. But I always tell people the fortune goes all the way down to 1,000. A lot of
Yes,
companies
exactly.
have $5 to $20 billion in revenue that you've never heard of. They need board members, right? So I think don't just get locked in your little world. Just think more expansively.
I couldn't agree more. All the insight and strategies you've shared can really go a long way. And so I really want to thank you so much for joining us today. Your wisdom has really brought, even for myself, so much value, and really appreciate your time being here with us. And obviously, everyone else tuning in, we hope you found today's conversation very insightful. Are there any other last minutes thing, any word of advice you'd like to share with the audience?
No, I want to give a shout out to you because
Oh,
you
thank you.
a ton of work to promote diversity in the
Yeah.
C-suite, your clients. I know you always have a mixture of resumes of folks they may have seen, may not
Yeah.
have seen. And what I tell people all the time is I know hundreds of Black women like me, right? I'm not a unicorn. I have a healthy ego. I think I'm really good at what I do. I'm just one that was privileged enough to get into the room, and I got in the room because people like you put my name in circulation to be in the room. And I think it is a virtuous circle, right? And I think the more we're in the room, the more it doesn't seem like you're the lonely only. You know, a lot of women that came before you, and I'm women that come after me. And
Right.
do that, but not by thinking like I'm super special, only I can do this, versus I know a lot of women who just never got a chance, right? And I want to
Right.
make sure that more women, more people who are left out, just more voices that are diverse, no matter how you define it, like whatever you want to define it, have a chance to be in the conversation. We're not going to be undiverse because of the executive order. We are more than three initials. We are people. We bring a lot of value. It's noise and distraction, but I think boards of companies that really want to do better and grow know that they do better when they have different sets of voices in the room. So,
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
but
Thank
thank you.
you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And I do, just like you would love to pay it forward, you are doing exactly that. For the audience, I reached out to Karla directly and she was so humble and quick to respond. So I truly appreciate that. And I'm humbled and honored for you to be a part of our second episode for She's on Board. So I really am so thankful.
Thank you.